Welcome to Sound Health Options on Blog Talk Radio. Very happy you could join us on this great, beautiful, at least here in Ohio, April day, sun shining, April 27th, 2014. Richard isn't here today. Our co-host is out and about doing wonderful things and recording for other people. So we're happy that you could be here. We have a very special guest, Jacqueline Marcel. She was a caregiver for both of her parents who were diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And after fighting with the medical establishment and getting no real answers, depleting all of her resources, she took on the task of caring for her parents in her own way. She has written a book about all of this. In her I don't think it's explanations was what was going on with her family. We will be with her in just a few minutes after a couple of announcements. One, we are simultaneously broadcasting, so if you want to watch the show, please go to soundhealthoptions.com, soundhealthoptions.com. Go to the radio tab, go to Blog Talk Radio, and it will give you a link to join us to watch the show. If you want to call in to the show, and since I'm running all these boards on my own, I may not get to you real quick, but the call in for Blog Talk Radio is 347-850-1407. 347-850-1407. Our sponsor today, the Institute of Bioacoustic Biology and Sound Health, and in particular their computer program called the Gray Matter of Alzheimer's, in which they can put a microphone in front of your face and see if there's going to be anything coming up that deals with Alzheimer's, from genes to brain chemicals to all kinds of things, and it will give you a written report that you can take to your medical provider if you think this is coming up. But I'm sure that Jacqueline will give us some indicators of what we should be looking for. The Institute of Bioacoustic Biology and Sound Health is a registered nonprofit 501c3. We're the largest alternative research center in Ohio. And what we do is try to bring you solutions and tools to help you. Information that'll help your life go smoother and more easy. And I'm sure a lot of you out there listening have begun to deal with Alzheimer's from a family member or friends, and it's a very hard situation. So our guest is going to enlighten us. We have a couple of announcements about an allergy class that we have coming up. This is going to be free to our listeners. So all you have to do is go to our site, soundhealthoptions.com, go to the radio show, and there'll be information there. It includes the software to teach you how to deal with allergies. We invite all of you to join us for our Guardian Network. That is a monthly meeting of people who are interested in making a difference in getting healthy and helping people stay healthy. So if you're interested, you can go to the Guardian link on our site, Sound Health Options. Last Wednesday, we did a show with about Cliven Bundy and Harry Reid in that standoff in Nevada. If any of you are interested in that mess and what we found out about it, because we did vocal profiles of Bundy and Reid, you can see who's telling the truth and what their motivations are. You can listen to that on freedomslips.com. We're on Studio B, 10 to 12 on Wednesday, or it's just easier to go to our site and go to the radio, go to Revolution Radio link, and it has the archives right there so you can watch the show. as well as listen to it. For the new folks, and I do see some new folks here, we have downloads of software. Fibromyalgia is a free download this month, along with radiation exposure software that we keep up there for everyone, hoping that we can help turn some of this around. There's charts there that show you whether or not you've been exposed. There's a computer program that'll help you, and some of the nutrients that you can use. The downloads under Secret Stash are 2 videos. We are having a premiere of a new video that I'm featured in. I guess I should have told you I'm sharing. And I run this Institute of Bioacoustic Biology. Sometimes when Richard's not here, I forget to bring everything in that I should, and I probably should write it all in. So we're going to have that new premiere. It's on May 24th, world premiere of The Business of Disease that Sonia Barrett and her group has put together. So you're all invited. It's going to be free. It's in the local movie house. So get in touch if you want to be part of that. For new folks listening, all of these downloads, NanoVoice, the bonus software, Fibromyalgia, the radiation exposure software, there's enough there for you to go ahead and start a business of bioacoustic consultant. Most people charge from $20 to $55 an hour for working with people because you learn to punch the buttons and everything's there. The textbook, all the paperwork to work with other people, all the charts, it's all there on downloads for you. On Tuesday night coming, on Happy Hour, we're going to be doing allergy testing. Please join us. This is an audience participation show, so we do free vocal profiles, and this one about allergies. What are you allergic to? And we'll be providing the software to you also. Thank you for all your emails. We take them seriously, and we've gotten a lot of them recently. We are going to be decoding the MERS, this antibiotic-resistant Middle East respiratory syndrome. There's no cure. So what we do here, and with some of the things we do, is decode antidotes for pathogens and yeasts and fungi. So we will shortly have that information for you. So they can't surprise us. Do remember the workshop on May 8th and 9th? That's going to be the allergy workshop. Okay, now on to our show and our guest. If you are watching, you'll see her picture there, Jacqueline Marcel. Very gorgeous lady. She's on the line with us, and I am going to open her microphone. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Thanks for having me, Sherry.
This is great. They have done an introduction to the show. I'm going to read it for those on Blog Talk that aren't watching what we're doing. And the intro says, Alzheimer's can be challenging to all. Whether you are a caregiver, a family member, or someone who's diagnosing it. There are warning signs. What are the adult care? Boy, I'm interested in this one. They're now calling this type 3 diabetes. So we're going to talk to Jacqueline about her book and about her caretaking. For those of you watching, we're going to be looking at her book through Amazon. I was incredibly impressed that it has over 305 star ratings. Jacqueline, welcome to the show, and this is such a strange, for me, a strange title, Elder Rage. How did you ever come up with that?
You know, the first title was Once an Adult, Twice a Child, because Grandma used to always say that. But then somebody told me, oh, people are going to go to the bookstore and they're not going to remember once or twice or whatever. You know, what's it really about? And I said, well, you know, it's about elder rage. Dad's rage at me, my rage at him, and my rage at the elder care system that didn't help me appropriately for over a year. So that's how it came about. And I thought, well, who's going to want to read about that? And it's written with so much humor. Otherwise, you'd kill yourself. So the subtitle is Elder Rage, or Take My Father, Please. How to Survive Caring for Aging Parents. So it's a little Henny Youngman twist in there for anybody old enough to remember Henny Youngman.
The book is funny, and you treat it as very lightly afterwards. This is a very serious thing. How did this come about for you, and how did you cope with it?
Well, you know, Dad had always been controlling. That was nothing new. He always had a bad temper, but it was never at me growing up. And my parents were just great, just wonderful to me. But boy, he sure had that dark side. And I saw it. And then Mom had a heart attack. He took care of her for 11 years, did a great job, but he would call me every day. I live in Southern California, there in San Francisco. And he'd tell me how difficult it was, and I'd fly up there, and I'd get caregivers in place, and, you know, they'd quit after a couple of days because he'd be so awful to them. And so I'd already been through all this, and then Mom nearly died from his inability to continue to care for her. And I was so infuriated that he had let it get to that point, and so I tried to convince him now he's got to accept the caregiver if she pulls through this, and he still wouldn't. And so 3 months in the hospital nursing her back to health, and I had just gotten laid off. I was in the television industry for many years, and my long-term relationship had just broken up. I just had spinal surgery. I was recovering from that. So it was like I had an inordinate amount of time suddenly to be able to spend, you know. So I thought, well, I'll be up there for a few weeks at least. Well, I was there for almost a year in San Francisco without a day off, trying to solve this with him turning on me, screaming, yelling, throwing me out of the house. And, you know, 3 months, try to get her back to some type of help in the hospital, bring her home, and thinking, well, for sure he's going to accept the caregiver. He can't do this. I can't leave her alone with him. And he wouldn't. And so that caused me to have to be there until I finally figured it all out. And once I finally solved it, I was just so mad. I was just so infuriated because I'm fairly bright. I'm not shy. I'm in a major metropolitan area of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm begging for help. I'm turning to healthcare professionals, and nobody's directing me properly and just sending me home again with, well, it seems fine to us. And I was just so mad. So I said, I guess I have, my best friend kept telling me, you got to write a book. I said, oh, Linda, I'm not writing a book. If I ever solve this, if I'm alive by the time this is over with, the last thing I want to do is relive it. And once I got everything figured out in every way, I was like, oh, if I'd been able to know this information sooner, I guess I do have to write a book. So that's how Elder Rage came about. And having no interest in elder care now, it's my absolute passion. And become a speaker and spoken at hundreds of conferences. And I'm educating not only families, but healthcare professionals, even doctors, for their continuing medical education units. And it's just shocking the questions that primary care physicians will ask me, no medical degree, but somebody who's been through it, lived in the trenches, and turned it around. And so that's my mission, trying to help other people not go through what I did. If I'd been able to read my own book, would have saved me a fortune in Kleenex.
That's great. I love your attitude about it. How did the conventional medical field fail you?
Well, you know, that would be so horrible. I mean, the first day I got there, I had bought some groceries. I had thrown out 2 little hand towels he had that were shredding. I mean, they were just crusted with food. And I came back, I was putting the groceries away, and he comes out of the bedroom screaming at me, how dare I throw away his hand towels? I'm like, Daddy, I'm so sorry. Were these special or something? I didn't think they'd even make it to the washing machine. I bought you 2 new ones for $1.50. He went ballistic. I mean, I try to calm him down. I'm crying. I'm pleading. I'm begging. He ends up throwing me out of the house. The daughter he's adored his entire life. And next day I called the doctor. I said, you've got to call and tell my father he's got to come in, early for an appointment. They had an appointment the next week or something. Make some excuse, and I'll meet you there. And got there. He was adorable. He was a peach. He was the most. I'm looking at him like, what is this? Okay. And they said, well, he's been under a lot of stress taking care of your mom. And so I just kept chalking it up to old age and stress, and it was all that. But it was also the beginning of some type of dementia in him, namely Alzheimer's, and nobody caught it. I took him to a neurologist. I took him to a psychiatrist. I took him to I was really trying to figure out and I don't know anything. I don't know what's going on. So the problem is that, anybody can diagnose it when it's very far into the disease. A 10-year-old can diagnose it. Mommy, Grandpa doesn't know me anymore. He doesn't remember my name. That's very, very far into it. It starts very subtly, very intermittently. It comes and it goes. So it's not like you go from normal to demented overnight. It's like, gosh, that's odd. With the knowledge I have now, I would have said this seems illogical. This seems irrational, even for him, even for his bad temper. This is really over the top. To get so upset over 2 little hand towels, right? I mean, it was just a shock. And I wouldn't have cried my heart out, and I wouldn't have left the house. I would have understood what was happening, and I would have known the 10 early warning signs of Alzheimer's, which I did not know at the time because he doesn't have Alzheimer's. He knows what he's doing. He's always been controlling. He doesn't want anybody in that house. He wants to be alone with Mom. He's going to use everything he has, and he's stressed, and he's getting older, and, whatever. And so once I finally learned those warning signs, and from the Alzheimer's Association, a year into this, somebody said, why don't you call them? I said, all right, what could they possibly know? And that's when the light bulb went on for me. And I was looking at these warning signs going, he's doing every one of these. But this is just what happens when you get older. This is just a part of aging, isn't it? And that's the big, big, big misconception that's out there for everyone. As we're all getting older, all the baby boomers getting older, and we're all having a heck of a time with our elderly parents, and now we ourselves are getting older. So it's imperative that everybody recognize these warning signs, because now the next day he could be darling and normal and adorable for days, and then there'd be some other weird thing. Honey, I don't remember how to tie my shoes. And I'm like, oh, he's such a drama queen, So I go over, I tie his shoelaces, okay, I hug him and I kiss him and I give him the attention he wants because he was a bottomless pit for attention. He was orphaned at 10, so Mom always said he could never get filled up from that. And, but if I'd understood that difficulty performing a familiar task is an early warning sign, I wouldn't have gone in the bathroom and cried that he couldn't remember how to tie his shoelaces. Because, the next day he could. He remembered how to do it. So I was like, so what happens is you go, well, I don't want to acknowledge the pink elephant in the living room that, he did this weird thing yesterday where all of a sudden I can't find the stapler and I find them in his accordion case and he's accusing me of doing that. And I'm like, why did you put it in here? I didn't do it. What? And then you start thinking, did I do that? Am I going to go? So all these things get chalked up, and they get chalked up, and they get chalked up. And then you have the crisis point where, anybody can diagnose it. So that's what the primary care physicians don't understand, is how to help people in the very beginning of this.
Was there anything that triggered it, like certain foods or I,
Well, if I knew then what I know now about nutrition, things would have been done a lot different. But, you know, no, I can't say that I had any correlation to that, but I'm sure I could have made it a lot better had I, you know, put them on such a, you know, nutritious diet as I know about now. But the thing was that when people go to their primary care physician, they're expecting that doctor to know everything. And so what I tell people is, get these 10 warning signs. You can get them for free right now. Just go to my website. Go to elderrage.com. 2 R's are in there, elderrage.com. Scroll down on the left, and you'll see the 10 early warning signs. Click on that. Print those out. Put it in a little spiral notebook. And every time you notice one, study them. And every time you notice one in your loved one, instead of saying, uh-oh, Mom, you're doing number 6, just quietly take notes, keep track of it.
and can you
Hey, Mom, you asked me that 3 times now in the last 5 minutes. I did? Yeah. So instead of, you know, making her feel bad because she has no memory of that, but short-term memory loss like that, not did I tell you this 5 days ago, but did I just tell you this? And you have no recollection that, you know, 5, 10 minutes ago you just told somebody that. So you keep track of these. Excuse me.
Can you go over
track.
this with people, the 10 signs?
Pardon?
Would you go over the 10 signs with people who are listening?
Yeah, well, I've done a few of them right now, but what I want to explain to people is the important thing is you keep track of them. You make notes about them. So when you get to the doctor and the doctor says to your mom, what day is it? What time is it? Who's the governor? And, oh, yeah, it seems fine to me. You know, she's getting older. And they send you home. You're going to say, doctor, can I speak to you privately? And you're going to pull out your list of the 10 early warning signs and your examples of things that you've noticed that have been odd in your mother. You know, gee, I found my mother's wristwatch in the sugar bowl. And I said, Mom, why did you put your wristwatch here? I didn't do that. Okay, well, it was on your wrist this morning, and now I went to make tea, and it's in here. Well, I didn't do that. So anything that seems odd, when your eyebrows go up and you go, that seems odd, write it down. Keep track of these. When you talk to the doctor, don't do it in front of the doctor and make your mom feel worse. But say, you know, I've called Mom's Insurance, and I found out that there's this Dr. Jones who is a neurologist who is specialized in dementia. That's the key point, because the primary care physician doesn't have time to do all the appropriate tests to uncover this early. So you say, I found the doctor who's covered by Mom's Insurance, who is the neurologist specialized in dementia, or I found a geriatrician, that's an MD with a specialty in geriatrics, that they're so familiar with this, that's just what they do. And primary care physician, I need a referral from you to that doctor so that I can get Mom in for early evaluation, because it has to be a blood, a neurological, a memory test. They've got to rule out reversible dementias like B12 deficiency or a folate, thyroid. You know, depression alone can cause dementia-like symptoms. Medications that they're taking can cause dementia-like symptoms. So all that has to be evaluated, and other reversible dementias have to be ruled out before they can finally come up with the right diagnosis. And it's quite complex. So the problem is people just get sent home. You know, she's not too bad. They do the mini mental exam. Well, you know, for a person there, she's not scoring too bad. Well, that's the problem. They say, well, yeah, you know, here's some medication, and they throw, you know, one of the Alzheimer's drugs at you. You know, there's 4 FDA-approved medications. You should not be taking medications without knowing for sure what the diagnosis is. And the primary care physician is not trained to be able to uncover that in a 15-minute, an hour even, office visit. It's really a complex diagnosis. So that's the whole key, is understanding these warning signs. So, you know, you drop in to see your mom, and Mom, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're not out of bed yet. Oh, honey, I didn't know you were coming. Well, is she depressed? Or could this be the beginning of some type of dementia? Or is it a combination? You know, you're driving with your mom somewhere and she says, gee, nothing looks familiar. And you're driving on the main drag that she's lived for 37 years. That happened to me with my parents. And I was at a stoplight, ready to turn left, and he's, you know, totally normal, and all of a sudden he starts screaming at me to turn right, and he grabs the steering wheel. He goes, honey, turn right, Aunt Dora lives over here. And I'm like, oh my God. Can you imagine if I'd been driving? And I'm at this, I put his hand away and I said, Dad, what are you talking about? Stop. You know, you've been to her house a gazillion times. She lives right over here. And he just turned pale and he goes, nothing looks familiar. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Now, if I'd understood that was a warning sign, you know, not understanding and recognizing someplace that's, you know, very familiar to you, I would have gone over to, you know, gotten out of the car at Aunt Dora's and immediately known what to do. Get an appointment with his doctor, you know, and find out who the right neurologist is. And not just a regular neurologist. I took Dad to a neurologist. Didn't get the right diagnosis. So, again, the specialized is really important. But anyway, once I finally, a year, can you imagine, a year of Dad throwing out caregivers, I couldn't, you know, bring Mom home from the hospital 3 months, and then he won't allow a caregiver in there. I couldn't get medication to calm him because he was always so darling in front of the doctors. And once I finally did get the medication, he flushed it down the toilet. He threw it in my face. He spit it out. You know, I tried to grind it up, and he'd watch you make every bite of your food. So couldn't get him calmed down, and he would be my loving dad 1 minute, and then, you know, one weird thing after another would happen. And so I called it like a caregiver catch-22. I couldn't leave Mom alone with him. She'd surely die from his inability to continue to care for her, as had happened before. I couldn't get a caregiver stay. I couldn't put her in a nursing home, nor did I want to. He would just take her out. I couldn't put him in a home. He didn't qualify. I was just completely trapped. And so once I finally saw those warning signs and my jaw hit the floor, I just couldn't believe. I said, no. I was still in such denial this could be happening. There's no Alzheimer's in our family. Well, you know, 50% of people, nearly 50% by the age of 85 gets this disease. And new reports is 1 out of 6 women by the age of 65 and 1 out of 11 men. So, you know, and my parents were of the age where this could be happening, but I didn't know any of that. Not in my realm, Alzheimer's. This wasn't in my sphere. I didn't have grandparents. Grammy lived to 97 and took care of herself. I mean, who knew? I had no other grandparents but her. So once you see those warning signs and you get it, and you get to the right doctor, and you get the right diagnosis, and you're sure that's what it is, then you can discuss with the doctor. He'll know if the medications will be appropriate for your loved one. They work in a lot of people. I'm not a fan of pharmaceuticals at all. Anti-pharmaceutical girl here. But I saw them, I was desperate, and I saw them work in Mom and Dad. And yeah, there's a lot of side effects, and you've got to work with the right doctor, and you've got to start at very, very, very low dosages and gradually work up. And it's what we have at the moment. So you just have to say, you know, what if that was you, or that's your mom, and you can get an extra 6 months or maybe you can get 3 years where you're more cognitively with it, and you can stay independent longer, stay in your own home, not need nursing home care as soon, because the medications don't cure it, they don't slow it down, they don't, you know, do anything but mask the symptoms. But that's what we have at the moment. But once I got the medications working properly in them, they were much more with it. And then I was able to more optimize the fluid and do the best with the nutrition that I could of what I knew at the time. And I was able then to get them into adult daycare, which was just an absolute blessing, because that gave them something to do all day and gave me a little bit of a break. And, you know, yeah, Dad hated it at first, hated it, wouldn't go, and I did it all wrong. And I talk about in the book how I could have done it better if somebody had told me how, you know, techniques to get somebody who doesn't want to do these things. How do you get them into the shower? How do you get them to give up driving? How do you get them to go see a different doctor when they refuse to get in the car? How do you, I mean, all these things, it's like, wow. So you learn to be very flexible and kind of a psychologist in the trenches trying to figure out, because it changes by the minute. Every day it's another monkey wrench thrown in, and how you deal with this, how you deal with that. And as soon as you think you got it all solved, there's something else that happens. So that's what I wanted when I wrote my book. I wanted it to be, and I've never written a book, I just wanted something that everything I wish I knew. Why didn't somebody tell me this? Is what I wanted to put in my book to help people.
We have a couple of questions from the audience. One, is dementia the same thing as Alzheimer's?
You know, let me explain that. I get that a lot, and I didn't understand that either. Dementia, put it up above. It's a big, big umbrella term, dementia, umbrella. Under that, there's Alzheimer's. There's all types of dementia. So you got, but Alzheimer's makes up for, they say, 60, 70, even 80%, some doctors will say, type of dementia. But there's Lewy body dementia, there's frontal lobe dementia, there's vascular dementia, there's Pick's disease, there's all these different types. But again, Alzheimer's makes up for the bulk of it. So if you go to a doctor that says, oh yeah, your mom's got some dementia, well, that tells you nothing. That just means, yeah, you knew that. She's not thinking very clearly. That means he hasn't done or hasn't referred you to the doctor who can do the appropriate testing to uncover what type of dementia it is. Because you want to know which type it is. They all have a little different profile. They all have a little different expectations and prognosis and, you know, treatment. And so you just can't blanket somebody with, oh, they got dementia, here's some Aricept. You know, no. So again, I come back to the right doctor is the big first key. And if you don't know, you know, go to a support group. And everybody goes, why? People say that to me. Why don't you go to a support group? I don't want to listen to other people's problems. I got two right here. And it wasn't until I got Mom and Dad into the adult daycare, and then I had time to get to a support group, that I was then, the brainstorming sessions would go on, and you'd start to learn from other people that were going through this, and you'd get the same, you know, in the area, oh, Dr. So-and-so was incredible with diagnosing this, and Dr. this, and Dr. this, and, you know, this, you know, service or that. So a support group is just highly valuable, and you know, there's so many online now that you can get on too. But that's what you got to know. And so your antenna needs to go up if you have a healthcare professional say, yeah, they got some dementia. Well, yeah, I knew that. Dementia just means not thinking too clearly. We need to know what it is.
The other question that came up, and I think it's a brilliant question, since both of your parents had Alzheimer's at the same time, could there be some environmental clues or triggers?
You know, that's still to be determined, but yeah, you know, my opinion is we're so bombarded with toxins every day. It's just ubiquitous in our environment, in our food, in our air, in our water, in our toxic relationships, just all of it. And so who knows for sure? But there's more and more research now being done. One doctor, he had it a lot in his family, and he's written some books about this, where doing autopsies, he's found a lot of toxic, chemicals, the copper and the lead and the zinc in the brains of the Alzheimer's family members that he had. So it's possible, right? And Dad worked in the shipyard, and I'm sure around a lot of toxic chemicals for many years. And so we don't know for sure, but I think that's the way it's going. But what is happening now is that, as you mentioned in the intro, Alzheimer's is being called type 3 diabetes. Have you heard this yet?
I haven't. I was intrigued by it when I saw it in your stuff.
Isn't that something? Well, we've got, 300 million plus people in the country. And when we were kids, we had 10 or, 5–10% of the country was obese, overweight. Now it's 70%. We haven't all become gluttons and sloths. We've become addicted to the sugar, which is high fructose corn syrup is in 80% of the 600,000 food products in the grocery store. All the fast food, all the processed food, all these chemicals. And now the diabetes is just on an absolute dramatic rise. They say about a third of the country has got prediabetes or diabetes. Wow. Well, that's dysregulation of insulin coming from the pancreas, right? So now they discover, you know what? There is insulin in the brain as well. There's insulin secreted. They used to think just in the pancreas. No, it seems that there's in the brain as well. So if there's a dysregulation in insulin going on in the pancreas, that may be what's happening in the brain. So there's quite a few doctors now that have written books on this topic as well. And you can email me and I can refer you to some stuff. But it's so important that you look at individual responsibility for all of us and thinking, okay, I've got to get my diet perfect, which I have done. No sugar, no starch, no grains, ever. I know it sounds extreme. You're all going, oh boy, crackpot, what does she eat? Well, after I took care of Mom and Dad, I got breast cancer. No cancer in our family of any kind. Everybody had heart disease. And so I was just shocked. And once in my support group, as I'm sitting there getting my chemotherapy for 6 months and double mastectomy and radiation and 6 surgeries, all kinds of complications. I hear in the support group, of course, the doctors didn't say this to me, sugar feeds cancer. What? And I've been a sugar-addicted person my whole life. Didn't realize I was addicted, but I was. I just thought I really, 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 really liked ice cream. I didn't get it. And so I cut it all out, and it's awful for about a month. You just feel terrible. And I wasn't able to do it 100%. I went through all the treatments and stuff. I was 80% off. But then I finally decided to go 100%. And that's when I saw the biggest improvement. 100% off all that, 100% organic, filter, water, air, relationships, everything. And wow, my skin is like butter. It's like unbelievable. So my insulin is, very, very low level that I shoot out. My fasting insulin is like 79 or something ridiculously low, which is wonderful, where it was always borderline high. So I was pre-diabetic, and they never told me that, but looking back at my old test. So, wow, if that's what's really, everybody's got to take control over this insulin response. And if you are a person that dreams about donuts and, has to have your dessert, I've been there, done that. You've got to go through it cold turkey. I know it's horrible. You go through about a month where you just feel awful. You feel like you need to be in Betty Ford because the withdrawal is really awful. But if you understand the science and you read about it, you know it's going to pass, it will, and you don't have any of it, you come out of it. And you come out on the other side, and for the first time in your life, you don't have cravings. It's amazing. And it gets better and better and better the longer you don't have those foods. So my diet is tons of vegetables, low glycemic fruits, dairy and citrus. I eat animal protein, so it's all organic, grass-fed animal protein, wild fish, seeds and nuts, and avocados, and raw goat cheese, and green tea. You name it, I do it. I'm 100% on my diet, and wow, it's so easy and delicious. Cook with the coconut oil. Shouldn't be cooking with olive oil, everybody. New reports are saying, the heat destroys the benefits of it, but the coconut oil can take it. And now there's some new research that coconut oil, the MCT oil, in the coconut may be very beneficial for dementia and cognitive decline. So boy, get a tablespoon or two of that in you a day, right? And it's delicious to cook with. And so you do everything you can. That's what everybody has to do now, is wake up, do everything we can do to take personal responsibility for our own health. Because when you go to the doctor and you tell them you don't feel good, and then they give you an antidepressant, and then you don't feel good after a while on that, and they give you another one, and then, well, you got to, then you're, oh, my thyroid's not working anymore. You got to take thyroid medication. Oh, now you got osteoporosis. They give you, and it's pill after pill after pill. Western doctors are trained to see what it is, look it up, give you a pill for it. They don't tell you anything. If I ever heard a word about prevention from any of my doctors, I would have been shocked. So the prevention has to come from each individual taking responsibility. And like Mom always used to quote, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure. And I can sure tell you that is true. So take responsibility. Just take charge of your health, because we're going to bankrupt this country. We're just on an absolute trajectory for it. There's no stopping it with the numbers of people that are getting sick and that are going to get sick because of their own lifestyle. If I had known what I know now, I wouldn't have had to go through what I went through with my parents. I could have walked into that house, understood what was happening immediately with the first rage at me that was so over the top, and the filthy house. I was just so shocked to see the condition of my parents' house. I would have gotten it. I would have known the right doctors. I would have known the right medications. I would have known the right nutrition. I wouldn't have let him stress me so much for a year that on top of my not taking care of myself, I allowed all that stress, cortisol, adrenaline, to just permeate my system and give me breast cancer. My entire trajectory would have been different had I known then what I know now. So, boy, please listen to me. Please take control.
I see the relationship between brain insulin and pancreatic insulin. Could you explain how the grains come into it?
Well, because grains, sugar turns it, insulin gets shot out immediately. So with starch, like potatoes or corn, and grains, any type of grain turns to sugar immediately. Body recognizes it just like sugar. So, and the gluten is the problem. So, the wheat, barley, rye, and oats is often produced in a facility where it's cross-contaminated from the gluten. So many people are gluten sensitive, and a very small part of the population is celiac disease, but that's at the far end of the spectrum. Now many of the doctors are believing that all of us virtually have some sensitivity to gluten. So, you use almond flour, you use coconut flour, there's alternatives. There's things that you can use that you can still have your pancakes and your bread and your muffin, but you're not getting the gluten and you're not getting the insulin response. So once you stop shooting the insulin out, because what happens when you do that over a lifetime, or even as young kids now, children are getting diabetes. It used to be called adult onset. They had to change the name and just call it type 2 diabetes because it's an epidemic in children now. There's an epidemic of obesity in 6-month-olds. That's just shocking because the mothers are obese, They don't understand any of this science. They're addicted to these foods. They crave them. They want them. They eat them. Their body's not getting nutrition. They're starving, really, because the cells become insulin resistant. So you eat the sugar, starch, or grain. The insulin shoots through your body. Your cells are like so worn out. They go, no, we're not opening up. The little insulin receptors do not open up. So the pancreas shoots out more insulin. And the cells go, no. But the fat cells go, hey, we'll take you. Come on over here. We have an open door policy. So that donut you eat today is literally on your thighs tomorrow. And your thin friend, doesn't happen to her, because her cells are insulin sensitive. She hasn't destroyed her insulin sensitivity her whole life. So that's why, how many times have we dieted, the same 25, 30 pounds off, white knuckle it through all these programs where just have a little oatmeal. Oh, just have a little brown rice. Oh, just have a little whole wheat pasta. Oh, have a whole grain bread. All just shooting our insulin through the roof. And when you have more insulin going through your body, you're hungry. Insulin is the hunger hormone. It makes you want more of it. When you eat good quality fat, your avocados and your wild salmon or any of these good proteins and good quality fats, you're satiated. You're not hungry. It's amazing. I could never go more than 2 or 3 hours without eating something. Now, it's like 20 hours and I go, I didn't eat yet. That has never happened to me my whole life. It's a shock. So you got to stop shooting the insulin. Insulin is the hunger hormone. It's the fat storing hormone because you're just dying of nutrition because your cells aren't getting any nutrition. So your body is sending out the signal, making more ghrelin, which is the hormone they just discovered in 1997, that tells you hike over another mountain range and get another wildebeest. You're starving to death. So you shoot out more ghrelin that will force you to get up at 5 a.m. and jog to the donut store, which I did in my 30s, by the way.
Wow.
After going on some stupid fast, and losing all this weight on a fast, and then you go crazy. So insulin is the culprit. And you've got to understand how to control it and get it as low as possible so you eliminate your chances of prediabetes or diabetes. Prediabetes is a no, pre-nothing. It is you've got a problem with insulin. And you want to go get, I'm not a doctor, talk to your doctor, but you want to get fasting blood glucose so that you can find out where you are, and you want that really low. And then your triglycerides, which is what's really the problem, not cholesterol, will drop like a stone. What increases triglycerides? That's what's really the root of the heart disease. Sugar, alcohol, stress, no exercise, and the trans fats. So the good fats are good, but those omega-6 oils that are in the corn oil, and the safflower oil, and all these other oils, those feed oils, do not use those. Those are what's the hydrogenated oils, all the processed food, the fast foods, just filled with these bad fats, and that's what's raising your triglycerides. My triglycerides were high. When I went on this, they dropped to 42. That's tremendously low. Dr. Oz's are 81. He did a show on this. Not that I email him all the time. Do a show on this. Do a show on that. I've been doing that for years. And eventually he does, and he did one on the triglycerides, and he had everybody in the audience, they took their blood, and people had their little numbers on, 400, 600. His were 81, and I'm laughing. I'm like, I'm at 42.
So the big headline that I'm getting in here is control your insulin, control your Alzheimer's.
Yeah, because 50% of people that get diabetes go on to get Alzheimer's. They've always known it's a huge correlation. They just didn't know exactly why. So, but is there a pill for don't eat sugar, starches, and grains? The pharmaceutical companies would like to make one. You've got to take control of it.
We have 2 questions from our audience. At what point do you move from you taking care of to adult care during the day to a 24-hour facility?
It was very individual, of course. And my goal was to keep my parents out of those places. Not there aren't some good ones, but you know, we've all heard the horror stories, and nobody's gonna know, you know, for sure. I mean, you've got to do your research. You got to go there on the weekends and talk with other families, and what you wish they had, you know, what do they wish they had known before they moved their loved one there. Is there anything you want to talk to the administrators? Are there any liens? Are there any complaints? Are there any legalities on that facility? And, you know, God bless the internet. We can look this stuff online, too. But the best way is to show up unannounced sometimes, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning, as anybody, you know, paying attention to the buzzers going off in people's rooms. You know, I had 3 months of mom in the hospital, and then she was in a subacute nursing home, you know, to see if we were going to be able to bring her home. And I saw all this. And, wow, if you're not a strong advocate for a loved one in those places, a lot of rough things can happen. So it was my goal to keep my parents at home. It's not for everybody. I worked very hard to make that happen, and I did. I was finally able, once I got the diagnosis and I had everything figured out, you know, then I was finally able to get Dad to accept caregiver, and I got this amazing gal, amazing Ariana. You will not believe it. 1 year of high school, no experience in elder care, because none of the agencies would, none of the professionals would put up with him anymore. But anyway, it's an amazing story of how we finally turned all this around. And I was able to keep her and her mom 24/7 care, taking care of my parents. And that was just a huge blessing. But not everybody can find amazing Ariana. So it's hard. It's very individual. You have to really do your research.
When we're looking at your book on your site, we're looking at this Elder Rage sample chapter, Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. Tell us the most important things you want the audience to get out of your book, and then how they can contact you to come and speak to their group.
Well, everything's on my website. You can contact me through elderrage.com. And how to get the book, and it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, it's audio, ebook, print book. You can order it from me in a autograph, that's whatever you want. But, and I speak all over. But the biggest thing I want people to take away is put yourself first. You know, people get upset with me when I say this. Even my friends have said this, that they've gotten upset with me. I'll say, your parents have lived their lives. Don't let their end of life shorten yours. That's not what they would want for you if they were in their right mind of thinking. They're stressed, they're facing mortality, they've got aches and pains from head to toe, they've been to a dozen funerals in the last year, you know, friends and family are dying, you know, life's not too pleasant. So you got to ask yourself, how am I going to be at that moment when that happens to me? Don't let it happen to you sooner than it should. And hopefully you can live to 102 with no dementia and die in your sleep. But just in case that doesn't happen, you've got to walk a mile with their walker, and you've got to put yourself first. You've got to put your health and your determination not to let the stress of the situation take you down. So you ask for help, specific help. Make a list of ideas that you need of things done. People say, what can we do to help you? Here's a list of things I need. Pick one. Anything from, you know, pull some weeds in the garden to organize the pantry to, you know, sit with mom for a half an hour while I go to the store. And, you know, put 25, 30 things on there, and they can pick something you need that they feel comfortable with that level of doing it. Ask for help, get to a support group, and just don't even think you're going to do it by yourself. And so I hope you'll read my book. It's 2/3 how I solved this, and then it's a third question and answer book, how to do this, how to do that, specific questions and answers. And then there's a doctor's chapter by a renowned dementia specialist on treating dementia. And he just made my book required reading at numerous universities for required reading for courses in geriatric assessment, and management. I'm so honored by that. So it's got just, everybody says, when are you going to write up another book? We loved your book. There's 485 five-star reviews now on Amazon.
I thought that was
I don't know. I've never written anything but a postcard. It just came out of me. I don't know. I didn't know I even had a talent for this. But anyway, and I edited it myself, and I self-published it, and everything. But anyway.
One of the things people have said about your book is it gave them down-to-earth, practical solutions in practical talk.
Yeah. Don't you hate when you go to lectures and it's so esoteric and, yeah, okay, we know elder care is hard. Great. Tell me what to do. How do I handle it when Dad is throwing the caregiver's clothes out the window into the neighbor's yard? How do I handle it when he's spraying the neighbor with the garden hose? I look out the kitchen window. He's spraying the lady across the street and she's spraying him. What do you do? I mean, what do you do? I mean, so I just wanted real specifics, what to do, how to do it. And I want to make you laugh through the whole thing because you need endorphins surging through you. Every page, you got to have endorphins so that you can laugh and you can retain the information. I call it edutaining. Because if you don't edutain people, who remembers when you read a textbook? I was a college professor in my first life. Believe me, you got to be edutained. I would put on a show. Maybe that's where it came. I had never done public speaking, but speaking in front of my college course, I taught photography and filmmaking, not related to elder care. But I would put on a show and make the kids have such a fun time.
Well, here's another question from our audience, and we're just about out of time. You have about 3 minutes to talk about this. And should you cajole or be tough or somewhere in between?
All of the above and more. Some days what would work with Dad is this, I pleaded with him. Sometimes that would work. Sometimes if I gave him the cold shoulder and just didn't speak to him all day, and then, all right, or sometimes if I would, not that I was faking crying, but I would be sobbing my heart out. Sometimes that would work. But I mean, you just try everything. And I go through distraction, redirection, reminiscence, validation, little bribery. I go through these techniques that I figured out of my own little pea brain over here. And then I find out, there's been, PhDs that have written books on this. Well, who reads those? I mean, come on, give me something the lay person is going to read, and they're going to get it, and they're going to understand, and it's going to give them hope and techniques to try. So I have in the book, specific things that you can try. If all else fails, try this. Then try this. And so you see what works. He would stand over the washing machine praying for it to make it through one more rinse cycle. And I'd be like, Dad, what are you doing? And I'd look in there, there's no clothes in there, I couldn't get him to move away from the washing machine. Well, what are you going to do? I'll try and drag him away from the washing. So I talk about how, distract him. Dad, guess what? There's going to be a TV show on about that NASA's thinking going to the moon again. We love the moon shows, So anything with NASA. So I had all the programs, and I just keep rotating them. They were new to him each time.
Do you do private consultations? That's an audience question. Do you do private consultations?
Consulting, yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, call me. I swear I can save you so much time, energy, lots of Kleenex.
We have your information up online, and there's several people in the chat that are bringing up issues about diet, but it doesn't really pertain to Alzheimer's, but they need to get in touch with you. So Cindy and the others of you.
Yeah, they can email me. Just through my website there, elderrage.com. There's contact the author.
Okay, and you have a fax and email, and we see it up here.
Yeah, yes, just contact the author. It's on the website, elderrage.com. They can email me through there.
And go to Amazon, or can they buy the book through you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to click on Elder Rage here. Yes, there's purchasing options right there on her site.
Yep.
listen to this, guys. Over 300, you probably have the exact number, gave this
485.
485. There's 5-star ratings, and people are raving about this, and it's becoming, as she says, an absolute epidemic. Thank you so much for being with us. If you ever write anything else, let us know. We'll have you on in a minute. You are an entertaining.
Oh, I love it. Thanks. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Entertaining and informative guest. I want to remind people that we have posted a new keynote. I didn't have time to read it. I wanted to get to our guest. I knew she had a lot of information. But please jump on our site, soundhealthoptions.com, and read the keynote. These are frequencies that come to the Earth from outer space that affect us. And right now, there are triramines that are affecting us, and that comes in cheese and other kinds of things, and they are causing headaches and hypertension. So the keynote tells you a little bit about that and how to ward against it. Again, thank you, Jacqueline. You've been a wonderful guest. We'll have you back anytime. Thanks all of you for listening, and thank you for the chats. Love the suggestions. And next appearance is Happy Hour on Tuesday. We'll be doing allergy evaluations, vocal prints for everybody. And thank you for being here.